The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. What happens when a title fails? Okay, so a title goes out to market, they put some effort into it, doesn't work. Well, here's the question. It says, okay, first of all, sell the mail starts. First of all, thanks for taking my last mail. Here's another. Promise it's the last one. Why? They're good mails. Don't promise it's the last one. Keep writing. Anyway, it says, hey Perch, with longtime fans growing increasingly frustrated, a piece of advice often thrown around is to just quit. Stop reading, stop buying, move on. In fairness, I've given that advice, but it's not because it's not to say, hey, it's not getting any better, you should leave. It's just it's more, if the act of comics is making you truly angry, okay, I use the expression tipping over. If it's truly, driving you nuts, then you should walk away. You should stop. I would say it about anything: coffee, sports, football. I had a friend who was into fantasy football to what felt like an unhealthy degree, and we were all like, you should leave. I was like, why would I leave? Why would I leave something I love? It's like, well, because it's clearly making you a crazy person. That's why. And you say you love it, but it's hard to believe that when you fly into uncontrollable rages at times when your team doesn't put points on the board. So it's one of those things. Anyway, the mail continues. The logic is often presented as a two-pronged point, though. Underlining this approach is also the idea that if Marvel took a big enough hit to their series, they would course correct. If the sales of Amazing Spider-Man severely tanked, the editor would remove Zeb Wells, take the character in a different direction. The reason Dan Slott wrote Spidey for so long is that despite all the criticisms, the sales kept going strong. If we entertain the thought for a moment that a mass boycott of a title was to happen, I don't think that would actually play out, the course correction, that is. Marvel DC would indeed cancel a book, but they would replace it with a new #1 within 6 months. If pressed on it, they would call their fans racist, sexist, toxic, etc., and explain that they will never give in to bullying tactics while pounding their chest on Twitter. By the way, I half agree. So some people would do that. In your scenario, although, knowing the guy, he wouldn't, but the person who would take that approach would be the Zeb Wells. If you notice Marvel, I'm talking corporate Marvel. I'm not talking about the writers. I'm not talking about the individuals. I'm talking as a company. They don't. Marvel does not call fans racist, sexist, homophobe. They don't. You might go, well, no, they do. They don't. Individuals in their companies do, and you might say, oh, same dip, but it's not, and here's why. And by the way, I don't think this is not an argument of like, hey, Marvel's not so bad. It's kind of the opposite, because there are certainly people in Marvel who see that and like that approach, and are willing to let their creators, run that play. Basically, I mean, put it this way, and if you if Marvel wanted to, and I say this because Marvel has, and we saw it play out in public with Chuck Winding, Marvel could absolutely shut down somebody going off on a rant on Twitter. They could say, get lost. We don't. They could do a full stop to it. They did with Chuck. The reason why they did is a video for another time. But anyway, they did. So Marvel has the ability to shut it down. So when you see somebody yelling and screaming, or the fans are all racist for not liking my comic book, whatever, know that Marvel's seeing that and choosing not to weigh in. Marvel, on the other hand, will say, hey, it was time to take the character in a bold new direction. We wanted to give the character some breathing room. There's a lot of excuses that come up. We wanted to put the character on the shelf for a little while, have a chance to reach into our grab bag and tell stories from other characters. They have a very well-practiced method here of how they do that, meaning the corporation. The corporation never goes, oh, the fans are bad. In fact, to the opposite, they'll go, our loyal fans love everything we're doing. They take the opposite approach of portraying the fan base as universally positive about everything they do. And, as a result, we love our fans. And that's why we're canceling this popular character and gonna not do anything with it for 6 months, because we love our fans so much that we want a chance to tell other stories from within the universe and build the excitement for the eventual return. But this is a two-pronged strategy. It's a corporate strategy of, say everything is amazing, say that what you're doing is entirely intentional, subvert the boycott by saying that it had nothing to do with people not buying the title. We planned this all along. This is always our idea. It was always our plan to cancel the book and pause it for 6 months to a year and then relaunch it. We always intended to do that. That is, for example, look at Donny Cates's rough and abrupt departure on Hulk and Thor. Marvel hyped those things, like crazy. Cates leaves at this point very publicly. Everybody knows what happened, and the stories about Cates trickling out are getting crazier and crazier. But instead, I was reading a bit from Marvel. It's like the story of Planet Hulk had come to its logical conclusion. What? No, it didn't. No, it absolutely didn't. You had your artist take over his writing duties, and no offense, I mean he can clearly do it, but he's unhappy. You're seeing interviews of him going, "Yeah, I'm doing create our own stuff for a while because fuck this corporate stuff." And and meanwhile, Marvel's like, "Yeah, this grand conclusion to this arc." No. Anyway, it is an interesting approach when you really nail it down. And it kind of makes you more bitter, frankly, than positive. Anyway, all right. If it were to back to the mail, if it were to happen to several titles over a long time, they would eventually restructure the company and finally just stop publishing said titles completely. I get the impression that upper management would much rather let the ship sink than ever make the changes fans want. And what makes me think this is the likely outcome and that cooler heads wouldn't prevail? Simple. They are already leaving money on the table, and they don't seem to care. Leaving more money on the table doesn't change this. Thus, the only real hope for those fans who want to see fundamental and widespread changes is a complete purge of upper management, which will probably never happen. All right, that's about it. Thoughts. So, a few different things there. So, first off, I agree to a point. Look, I mean, most corporations, and this is where Marvel and DC are not unique. They do want to be in charge of their own ship. And so the idea of just turning around and saying the fans will tell us what to do, that approach has been attempted before in other mediums. That usually doesn't work either, because it turns out that, fans can tell. Here's what the balance needs to be. The fans of a product should say what they want the product to be. The company needs to take that input into the equation and match it up against the business of where they're going. Look, it is a true statement, and people have used this as a defense to say, hey, if people only listened to the fans, there would have never been characters like Deadpool and Venom, because the fans didn't ask for Deadpool and Venom. They didn't even know there existed. So, you can't just listen to the fans. You got to do your own thing too. Well, that's a bit of a false equivalency, and it's not that's not exactly fair. You need to listen to your fans about the tone of the book they want, about the direction of the book they want, and the plot beats and the plot points. The fans still want to be surprised. That's also something they want. Fans do want surprises. They do want writers and creators and others to come up with new things. It's not like the fans want to dictate every panel and every character that shows up. The fans will say things like, hey, we liked X-Men when it was a dangerous kind of underground book and the X-Men were fighting for survival and it had kind of an edge to it. That was when we loved the book the most. And, that Marvel says, don't tell us that you want Longshot on the team. We'll decide that. It's like, well, hang on. No, nobody ever said that. I don't know. But fans will say things like, I'd really like to see a team with this character, that character. But those are the comments from the fans you largely, I would say, ignore, but you need to get to the meat of what the fans are actually asking for. That probably is the origin and truth behind give fans what they need, not what they want, but that statement has been perverted beyond all recognition. You need to listen to what the fans want. You need to match that up against a business and go. And if you harmonize that, you're very successful. If you say, I'm not going to listen to what the fans want because, they don't know what they want, I'm going to give them what they want, that's a terrible idea. And on the other hand, fans will write this book. Tell me what villain we're fighting this issue and we'll write it for you. That's bad too, because again, it doesn't give the fans what they want. The fans do want surprises. They want the unexpected. If you're letting the fans write the book panel by panel, you're not giving them the unexpected. It's not that hard to figure out. Anyway, but Marvel, look, I think that as long as Marvel can take credit for it, or DC or whoever, as long as the people in control can say, if they get this balance right, they'll have no trouble listening to fan feedback and responding to a boycott. The problem is a lot of the boycotts, and people hate to hear this, is that the boycotts are often extremely unfocused and quite frankly, in comics, not terribly effective in the first place. Because the reality is, again, you may hate this fact, but it is just a fact. You are the C in a B to B to C world. The middle B, the business, the comic shop, is the one who actually has the buying power. Now, over time, the comic shop, if you're not buying the comic shop lowers their orders. But that is a 3-month delayed process that goes on. And in that world, a lot of comics get ordered, and you got publishers that aren't tracking these numbers closely and don't have a good sense of what sell-through looks like. And so a boycott, it's hard to understand where it's coming from and how it's reacting until very late in the game. And the other problem is a lot of the boycotts you hear about on social media just are not terribly. I know it goes against what you've seen, or there's some video from the quartering, like, our boycotts work. The challenge is just like the loonies on Twitter, who represent kind of the 1% of the buying audience. The people who go, I wish all the characters were gay. That's a tiny, tiny, insignificant fraction of the people actually go into the shops and buy the comics. Well, by the same token, it cuts both ways. The people who are really kind of trying to organize a boycott online also represent a tiny amount. Now, the people who are trying to organize the boycott, there's a world where they are tapped into kind of the normies or the mass market. If the title is boring and people don't like it, then, the people online may be boycotting it, but a lot of other people just quietly are not buying it. And it's that group that probably has the most power in everything. And they have even more power if they're going into a retailer and saying, here's what happened and here's why I don't like it. And I think a lot of people are going to stop buying, and the retailer slows their orders. That's the most effective thing you can do. But fundamentally, I think Marvel or DC needs to feel like, they thought up the win. Now, for me, this is my own personal thing, may not be yours, but I don't necessarily have the patience or energy to try and do a reverse psychology on Marvel and DC. They're big corporations making millions of dollars. In my mind, I'm sorry, there are people paid to do that job. So, the idea of cajoling them to, give them a great idea and let them think it's the great idea in order to actually kind of sneaky, get them to accept what I'm calling for. I don't know. That's just too much work. It just is. I think I agree with your point. Upper management needs to be largely purged in these groups. Now, I mean it in a movie purge way. Don't be sick. But I mean, I'm just talking. They need to find other jobs. A lot of these people, and some of them are very nice. We'll throw one person out who generally has, a decent reputation. Tom Brevoort has been in Marvel for a very long time, and he's managed a big line and everything else. It's time for a new editor-in-chief, though. Just is. We need somebody in there who's going to kind of respond to the market and change the approach, just like Bob Harris needed to leave DC. It wasn't helping. And I'm sure, these are very nice people and it sucks. I'm sure if I were one of those two guys, I was listening to this, I would think this Perch guy is a major prick. Well, you're not wrong, but yeah, I don't mean it in a mean way. I just mean it as it's time for a turnover in kind of the approach of how we're doing comics. Years have gone by. The business has changed. The audience has changed. You're fighting a different battle. And so, you do need new leadership. This big argument, I guess I'll end with this, is, comics need to find new readers. Well, that's true. They do. Not at the expense of the existing ones. You want to keep the ones you have, but you do need new readers. And once upon a time in the 80s, Jim Shooter struck the deal with Mattel, or was it Kinner? I think Kinner, right? Anyway, to do the Secret Wars, toys. And that was, they were trying to make money, but a big part of that was find a new audience. He was trying to locate a new group of people who are going to be buying comics for years. And it was a smart move. It worked. So there's nothing wrong. Some people in comments in my videos and stuff, people should stop looking for a new audience. No, they shouldn't. That's crazy. You need to find a new audience. You just need to do it in a smart, intelligent, thoughtful business way by listening to what the fans are telling you, listening to what they want, matching up with a business strategy, and then go get those new fans. And yeah, keep the old fans too. You want to keep as many people as you can, you moron. Of course you do. But I think that, just putting it bluntly, I think a lot of the leadership of these companies are incapable of being able to do that. And that's why the leadership does need to shift. I think comics has become a caretaker business. And what I mean by that is, the businesses, Marvel and DC in particular, have kind of gotten their heads like, we're an IP farm for the movie house. Therefore, we are a caretaker for these characters, not an inventor, not a storyteller, not taking them in new directions, but we are here to kind of watch over the house. Yeah, here, I'll give you this analogy. This would be what we end up. I think I said that once already. The book, or if you didn't read the book, the movie, The Shining. You know how there's a really nice hotel, with the overlook. Really amazing hotel in this thing. And the hotel operates in the summer because it's a, wintry area in Colorado. And, so it closes for the winter. And during the winter, while it's closed, they need a caretaker to make sure that, the place doesn't catch on fire or blow up, or just, that it's maintained. So when spring comes and it's time to open the hotel, we're ready to go again. That's what Marvel and DC feel like to me. They feel like the Overlook Hotel, and they're not really trying to get business at the moment. They've got to care. We're in winter. The caretaker is there, and the caretaker is quickly losing their fucking mind in the hotel. Somewhere in the halls of Marvel, or maybe in the halls of DC, Jim Lee is writing over and over on a typewriter, all work and no play makes Jim a dull boy. And that's the current state of affairs. We have caretakers of the companies. We don't have inventors. But overall, your premise, I think, is right. I don't think if you boycott, everybody would course correct. I think that is a bit of Pollyanna thinking there. I don't think it's quite as simple as you say. I don't think it's the opposite is 100% true either. But I think people are kidding themselves if they think I'll just boycott a title for 4 months and then Marvel will suddenly revert back to 80s storytelling. That won't happen. And, for all the reasons, the reasons you gave are fine, but there's another big one. The people who are running the show, the management, I don't think they could, give you the storytelling you're looking for. I don't think they could, go back to the basics and the classics. If you put a gun to their head, I don't think they could do it. I don't think they know how. You're asking somebody who's never, ever built a house, to become an architect. They don't know. Some of them used to, but a lot of years have passed. You're going to have to change upper management, and you're going to have to find people who actually know how to do this. That's what I would say. Anyway, thanks for listening.